we're back. It is February. It's the second week in February. How are you doing with your new year, new you? How are you doing with your goals? How are you doing with your everything? I just feel like January is a frenzy and February we can kind of relax a little bit. And then March, we're back into spring. So I'm sending you all the vibes for you to do everything that you set out to do, provided it was realistic. Many of us have unrealistic goals. And I digress. So today's podcast episode, this is a really interesting story. What we're talking about is the power of your female friendships circle. I want to say network, but I really don't love that word. And really how to leverage these female connections for your career and your personal life, and why it's important to curate and nurture these relationships with women.
Are you ready to speak up, stand out, and get your seat at the table? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to Unmute Yourself, the podcast where you'll get real life anecdotes and actionable tools for you to step into your strengths, debunk imposter syndrome, truly know your worth, and show up like you own the room every time. I'm your host, Nancy Medoff, who did the thing and followed my passion for empowering women like you to unleash that inner spark and become who you know you are meant to be. I'm a diehard foodie with a raging Skittles habit who will not stop until women everywhere unmute themselves and truly thrive at work, at home, or wherever you may be. Let's do this.
Podsters, before we dive in, I want to make sure that each and every one of you is aware of a very, very special coaching package that I'm offering only for the month of February. Here's what this is. In honor of Galentine's Day and women supporting women and really stepping in to your best life so that you really can thrive in 2025, I'm doing a very, very limited time, super condensed, highly intensive coaching package to get you unstuck and moving in the direction that you want to go. So here's what you get. 3 power-packed 1-hour coaching sessions. So this is three coaching sessions, one-on-one private with me. You also get unlimited support in between sessions because we can't accomplish everything we want to accomplish in that 1 hour. We cover a lot. You're going to want to think. You're going to want to do some research. You're going to want to come back. You're going to want to make decisions. And I'm here for you in between those sessions. There is no long-term commitment. Usually I have a 12-week minimum. I'm waiving this minimum, and I'm offering these sessions and this package at 60% off of my regular coaching fees. Only the month of February, only for people who have the link, which I am putting into the show notes, and only if you're ready to really dive in and do the thing. So what do you say, Podsters? Who's with me? The link is in the show notes, and I hope to see you soon.
I started thinking about this a while ago, and then I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to do this during Valentine's week because we can talk about Galentine's Day. And I used to kind of roll my eyes at that holiday because I just rolled my eyes at it because it's not a real holiday, Podsters. It's not. Now, I used to roll my eyes at it. And then over the past couple years, I've really kind of embraced this Galentine's Day, because if you think about it, there's no friendship day. I mean, I think that I'm sure there technically is, but there's really no day where you say specifically to the world, I'm going to honor and celebrate my friendships. And I feel that that's what Galentine's Day does. It's it's a little kitschy, and at the same time, it's for me celebrating the women in my life, my gal pals, the women who have been there for me. So I have embraced Galentine's Day, and as a matter of fact, next year think I'm going to have a little Galentine's Day soiree. I could not get it together in time this year. So here's what happened. So I started thinking about it and I said, I'm going to wait till Galentine's Day. And then confirmation bias, we've talked about this. This is where you have a bias or a thought in your mind, and then your subconscious will automatically pull in data, situations, behaviors, people to support that belief. It's a belief. You have a belief in your mind, and then your confirmation bias is what pulls in empirical data to support that belief. So I had this idea about Galentine's Day, and then every time I turned around, I saw another article about the power of female networks and the power of when women really nurture and curate these networks of women. So here we are, and we're going to talk about it this week, which is Galentine's week. I want to talk to you a little bit about why this is so important to me. And I want to also add that I have many male colleagues that are in my network that I lean on and that are great at giving me advice. There are men on my personal board of directors. This is not against men. This is for the power of women and that connection. So when I look back on my career and I think about all of the really, really, really major career decisions, whether or not I should move to Hong Kong to run a global sales organization, whether or not I should leave my company after 25 years, whether or not I should double down and really invest in my business. And when I made the decision to invest in my business, who was there right by my side? And when I had blind spots in my career, who it was that would pull me aside and say, "Listen, I see you doing this, and this is gonna derail your career if you keep it up." Which is a very difficult conversation to have with someone, and I'm grateful. So when I look back on all these kind of pivotal moments, it was always one of my female friends. Again, this is not saying that men don't have the capacity to have these conversations. Of course they do. And they are great at advice, and the relationships are equally as important. When I look personally back at my life, it is usually the women who were really there in the thick. I mean, they had the stomach for it, for whatever that it is. And that's really what led me to want to do this episode. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how women and men network differently. We're going to talk about the unique advantages to this to having a strong female network. And we are going to provide real life examples for how nurturing these relationships will create career breakthroughs. And I would also add breakthroughs in your life, in your personal life. I am at the point in my life where I'm very intentional about my friendships and seeking new friendships. And that's not easy to do when you're older. People's lives become much busier. People's priorities are really important and take up a lot of their time. And I just think it's harder when you get older. So this is something that I've been very intentional about. And if you were here for some of the New Year's episodes, this is one of the things that for my plan for this year, I wanted to really nurture and develop some of these new. A little bit about what I like to call the gendered approach to networking. So we talk about conversation gender bias. I talk about it in the book. I talk about the power of your female network in the book. The chapter is called Your Personal Board of Directors. So when I'm talking about this network for you, I'm talking about the women in your life that you can really count on. This is not necessarily your frozen rosé, let's meet up after work. This is really the women that you go to when you are in the mud and you need real help. So, the gendered approach to networking. Let's talk about how women network versus how men network. So, for men, this is really interesting. Their networking is often transactional and very specific goal oriented, and usually it's around access to people or people in a more powerful position. It's golfing, it's corporate outings, it's being introduced to other powerful men. And it's really different with women because women, so for the men it's more transactional, I would say, and maybe quantity. Not sure how I feel about quantity. For women, much more relationship driven, more trust based. It's about quality, it's about substance, it's about shared values, shared interests. It's about really I don't look at my network of female friends and colleagues and say, "Oh yeah, I'm heavily networked. I'm highly networked." I look at it as how are we supporting each other? So it's about priorities, values, interests, support, bonding, and it's different. So for example, my entire team here at Unmute Yourself is women, with the exception of Chuck. Chuck, shout out to Chuck. Chuck is the magic behind my website. We love Chuck. He's the best. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And that doesn't mean that I don't hire men, and that doesn't mean that there aren't very talented men out there. It's that the bond I bond with these women. I have a connection. There's a rapport. And it's different and it's stronger. And I surround myself with women who have shared interests, not exact replicas of me, shared values for sure. For sure. And if you are building out your company and you are building out your culture, the values that you want in your organization are really going to dictate who gravitates towards that organization. So the values that I want in my work and in my work ethic is what dictates the people that I work with. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it's mostly women. I don't. And when I think about when I was first starting my business, the work groups and the masterminds and the webinars and the virtual networking events, these were never by design only women, ever. N and I'm in touch with many of these people today. The collaborative mindset, the nurturing, the developing relationship, the helpful approaches, this is the power of this female network. So all these women wanted to come together and support each other and help each other. And that's incredibly powerful. So here's a statistic for you that is really interesting. There was a study done a while ago. So we all know that women supporting women were unstoppable. Unstoppable. This was Northwestern University, and it showed that women who had close supportive networks of other women had job rankings, whatever Northwestern classified that, as 2.5 times higher than those who didn't. So it was that network of women, and this was specifically a women, that helped elevate them. It's women advocating for other women to get leadership positions. It's women finally talking about salary negotiations. And I'm not saying that everybody should run around and tell everybody what they're making. It used to be very taboo to talk about our salary, and now we are having the conversations about the gender pay gap, and that gap is shortening, and it's shortening because women are demanding equal pay. And part of the reason why they're demanding equal pay is because other women are telling them how much they're making. I remember Brooke Baldwin. She was a former CNN anchor. Excellent, excellent, excellent anchor. And she went out to write a book. I think it was called Hive, maybe. I'll get the name of it and put it in the show notes. And she tells a story about how when she was an anchor and up and coming, there was a woman coming up behind her, and Brooke told her how much she was making. She said, I didn't tell her to brag. I told her so she knew what to expect. She was coming up right behind me. Well, here's what I got when I was in that role. So it's the women supporting the other women, and the men are not as likely to share that information. They're not. They're not. So we have referrals, we have recommendations, we have insider job opportunities, we have the emotional intelligence. So if you are going for a new role in your job and you have a female mentor also in that company that's helping you, they will help you navigate the nuances of the personalities and, you know, the emotional intelligence piece that's sometimes can be missing. A male colleague might say, okay, well, here's how you do this, this, and this, and here's how to do this. Whereas your female colleague might say, okay, so here's what's important to this person. Here's what you want to make sure you talk about. Here's what's keeping this person up at night. Here's what you want to talk about with them. And they will give you more of the insights and the emotional intelligence so that you can really position yourself to hit on all of the pain points and to solve all of the problems that are associated and that the hiring manager is going to want you to solve. We all know that there's a confidence crisis still. It's why I'm here. It's why I do what I do. It's why I speak on stages. It's why I coach. It's why I have this podcast. It's why I wrote the book. And when you are surrounding yourself with other supportive women, you will naturally get a confidence boost. You are less likely to experience imposter feeling when you're surrounded by women, or you'll experience it and you won't give it as much weight because you know they all have felt this way. Now, if you've been with this podcast for a while, you know that men also have imposter feeling. The difference is they do it anyway. What I'm saying is when you're in a room with other women, they know how you feel and you know they know how you feel. And that will boost your confidence. You will speak up more, you will advocate for yourself more, you will walk taller. You'll just walk taller with a room full of women. So that's kind of the power of your network. So let's talk about the power of the informal. And this is really cool. This I love. This is the informal women's networking. This is pickleball for those of you who play pickleball. And I know there are men who play pickleball, talking about specifically females, book clubs, mom groups, fitness classes. These casual get togethers will lead to professional opportunities. They do. They do. And especially if you're in an environment where there's a woman that wants to support another woman. So you're networking or you're talking with her and she will naturally pull you in and try to bring you along. And I want to say something more about the power of your female network because this is really important. I will never forget, I might get choked up. I'm feeling really emotional today. I don't know why. It's interesting. I'm recording this. It's like February 5th, I think, or 6th. I don't know. 5th. Um, I remember when I did my first big photo shoot and I was launching this website and the book and the speaking, and it's a big deal. It's a big investment. It is an all-day event. I had never done a big photo shoot like that before. And I don't know if intimidating is the word, but it's long, it is grueling, it's tough. It's fun, but it's also tough. And my friend Bonnie, and she listens to this podcast, she showed up the whole day. She was by my side. She had all kinds of snacks and stuff. That's just Bonnie. She's always prepared. She was my personal assistant for the day when I didn't even know I was going to need one. She sent me a massive bouquet of flowers, massive. It was the biggest floral bouquet I've ever had. And because she knew I was going to need it, I didn't know I was going to need it for the photos. She brought all the wardrobe stuff, that you need when you're taking pictures. And she was just there to do whatever I needed. I didn't ask her. I didn't, I think I mentioned it. She was there without me even knowing that I needed her to be there. And that's the power of a female friendship. She knew what it was going to be like. She knew what I was going to be going through. She knew what I was going to need. She didn't ask permission. She showed up and she did the thing, didn't ask for any accolades, didn't ask for anything. That's just what women do. And I don't think it would have occurred to any of my male colleagues to do that. It wouldn't have. Nobody cares about me more than my husband. And he was like, "Oh, bye, honey. Have a good day." Right? They just don't. So they're in it with you and they know what's happening. They know what you're going through. That is incredibly powerful. So if you know Bonnie, shoot her a note. Tell her thank you for me. So I don't know if you can hear the snowblower in the background, Podsters. I'm in New England. It's about 19 degrees out and it was snowing and it's really cold. So for those of you that are in Brazil or Latin America or Dubai or somewhere else in the Middle East, I know it's hot. I wish I could trade places with you because it is really cold here. Okay, I digressed. So let's talk about how to build or strengthen this female circle because I wanted to make sure I really talked about this. There are a lot of women that I run into, and we talk about women supporting women, and we talk about women not supporting women. We've all heard the quote that there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. I think it was Madeleine Albright. It might have been, it was the other M name, I can't remember. And I would like us to stop saying things like that because I don't hang out with women who don't support other women. And I've been there. I have had bosses, female bosses that would do whatever it took and they would absolutely not support other women. I have had colleagues, the same female colleagues, the same thing and I I don't engage. So for me it's really never been that much of an issue because I gravitate towards women who support other women because I support other women. So let's talk about how to build or strengthen or leverage this female circle. Okay. If you don't have one, no problem. All you need to do is be intentional with your time and with your energy. And if you have something in common with someone and you want to develop the relationship, you follow up. You follow up with a phone call. You follow up, hey, can we meet for a cup of coffee? And you nurture the relationship and develop the relationship before you need them. And I talk about this a lot when I give my keynote. You don't want to be calling someone that you haven't talked to in 18 months when you need a big favor. You want to nurture that relationship. And for those of you who have read the book, it's in the book. Also, part of my coaching program, I have the forensic framework for networking. And this is how to be really, really, really intentional with your networking. So if you're not a member of my confidence community, there's a link in the show notes. Sign up. It's free. I send out all kinds of great tools, and the forensic networking framework is in there. And it's a way for you to kind of organize your contacts and make sure that you are strategically and forensically following up with people in a pattern that's just easy. It makes it easy. Okay. So nurture the relationships before you need them. And that means going out and leaving your house sometimes when you don't want to. So I want to go back to the developing friendships. What are your hobbies? What are your interests? If it's fitness, I met a lot of my close friends in spin class. I did. Actually, when I look back on my life, a lot of my friendships when I was running marathons, I have friends now to this day that I met running marathons. Shout out to Laura Sue. So it's really around your interest. If it's cooking, if it's your kids, if it's skiing, whatever the case may be, it's really just being open when you're in an environment and making the move and saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. Would you like to get together sometime for a cup of coffee?" That's all you need to say. That's it. Hey, I really enjoyed I like your style. Would you like to maybe get together for a cup of coffee sometime? No one has ever said no to me ever when I've asked that. Another key to nurturing these relationships is to give before you get. So what I mean by that is make sure that you are equally initiating the meetups or whatever the case may be. Make sure you are championing other women. You know that I have other women on this podcast. I have other women coaches who do what I do on the podcast. I believe there's enough to go around for everybody. I admire them, I like them, I'm going to promote them. I'm going to share in my stories on Instagram when one of my female colleagues has a great win. It's what we do. It's what we do inherently. So I would encourage you to keep doing that. Amplifying other women, making sure that the females in the room, the females in your organization, I was just having a conversation with someone today about someone on her team who doesn't really speak up a lot and is kind of shy and timid. And this person said, "You know what? I need you to speak up more. Here's why you need to speak up more." Her person did, and she pulled her aside after and said, "You did a great job. That was great. You were really articulate." So it's amplifying other women. And then the last thing I will say is you need to diversify. And what I mean by that is this is in the book about your personal board of directors. Your network, look at your network and make sure it's not all people that are exactly like you. Make sure it's not all people that are only in your company. I remember I did this exercise probably 20 years ago, and I was writing down my network, and it was all the people that work for the same company. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to diversify a little bit because then you have groupthink and they don't have other perspectives and they can't give you great advice about what's happening at other companies. You want people from other industries so that you can kind of compare you can run parallel tracks and kind of compare what's happening in their industry. It might be a complementary industry, or it could be totally different. It's just different thinking. You want people that have a different business than you do, different strengths. A lot of the women in my network are extraordinarily detail oriented. I am not. You might have noticed that about me, Podsters. And the other thing that's really fun for me is when there are women in my network whose life looks completely different than mine. One of my closest friends has a 2.5-year-old child. And we just get a kick out of what's going on in her life, what's going on in my life. Another one of my friends has 3 kids, the youngest of which who's about to graduate high school. And I love seeing what she does with her family. I love the way her kids interact with her. You don't want people who are doing exactly what you're doing. And it's great. It's a yin and a yang, if you will. If I were to break this down into 3 steps, it would be the following. 1, look around your network and be intentional about who you're networking with and how you're networking and pay attention to the women in your network. 2, give before you get. I mean, that's the number one rule of networking, not just networking for women, but networking. And then 3, I'm going to give you a little call to action here. I am going to suggest, oh, I used to do a call to action every podcast episode. I'm going back to the weekly calls to action. All right, here's your call to action. Reach out to 3 women this week. Ready? 1 peer, 1 mentor, and 1 up and comer. Now, if you are not currently working outside the home, I do see you. I know you are out there. I talk to you. I hear from you. I would say reach out to 2 new women or 2 women, 1 who's a friend you haven't talked to in many, many years, and 1 who's a newer friend, and try and to nurture that relationship forward or make a new connection. So Podsters, that's my Galentine's Day love the women in your life message. Let's continue the conversation. Tell me, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you reach out to someone in your network? Did you do any of these calls to action? Shoot me a note, tag me on social media. All my handles are in the show notes. And yeah, let's celebrate. Let's celebrate all the time, but let's celebrate this week the women in our life. And Podsters, there is no one that I want to celebrate more than you all. This is episode 142. Wow. That's 3 years, Podsters. And it's all because of you, because you keep listening, you're sharing the episodes. Thank you. Hopefully, you're rating them on wherever you listen to your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, throw some comments in the comments. And I will be back, Podsters, next week. Peace out.
That's a wrap, Podsters. And before we go, I ask you, what's one thing from today's episode that you will use this week to unmute yourself? DM me, email me, send a smoke signal, whatever you need to do. Let me know what you're going to do differently. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you know and leave a 5-star review on Apple. This helps me spread our message of empowerment to more people worldwide. Let's do this.